I get a lot of comments in my videos asking to see more interiors or wishing we could see more interiors. So many of the buildings that I feature have been torn down. So I thought it might be time to put together a slideshow for you of some of my favorite interiors that I've come across over the years that I've been doing this. Starting with the Vanderbilt estate on Long Island. Here you can see the fireplace with the pipe organ built into the fireplace. But just take a look at how ornate all of this is. It doesn't make sense to be burning wood, having smoke and ash spitting out of here, and damaging essentially the finish, the very over-the-top finish. To me, this entire assembly is screaming energy generation for this structure. We'll keep moving forward. And some of them I do have the country of origin. And you can see here, this one's in Romania. And take note of how the finish is applied in many of these cases. You're going to have paintings on the ceilings and the curved areas above. Every square inch has been thought of, right down to the smallest of details. Not something that we even come close to duplicating in the modern day. The Woolworth Building in New York, black and white, but it's giving you, again, a sense of the attention to detail. Look at all the marble on all the walls, the ceilings. A very, very large amount of work, very time-consuming work, this type of finish work is. And it's really very rarely accounted for in the build duration for these structures. So it becomes a major issue. The Fox Theater in San Francisco, one of the early structures I came across in my research, I believe built in the late 20s and demolished in the early 60s. But you could see how closely the finished details match what we once considered to be the old world in places like Romania. As we move forward, you'll see more examples. Right down to the paintings. We've seen this in San Francisco before, the Palace of Fine Arts, looking like it's got paintings that have been whited out in the underside of the dome there. So this is reminiscent of that styling. And some places have been left derelict, like this in Detroit, an old church in Detroit. But you can see the brick behind there as well. Very interesting. Again, the level of detail, the level of care, the level of accuracy, all these things are off the charts. So if you're familiar with my channel, you know that the suggestion here is that history has, as we've been taught, is a deception that has been overlaid over our perception, using things like the school system and several reset scenarios, whether it be with war, famine, displacement. And the more we get deeper into this research as the years go by and more people start catching on, it seems to me the pieces of the puzzle are starting to become clearer. But that seed really is only planted when we come to the understanding that the historical narrative we've been given is a deception. Until you get over that hurdle, you just swallow what you're told about history at face value. This one's in Poland, as you can see, the pipe organ. So the uniformity of what we're seeing from country to country should be telling, an indication that there was a much higher degree of civilization that existed here in the not too distant past, and the deception of history that basically there was nothing until the Industrial Revolution. That entire storyline is a ruse, to put it lightly, which paints the parasites, the ones who took over after the reset of the old world, or continued the reset systematically, used history to paint themselves in the most positive light. They take credit for these structures, or their secret society brethren get credit for it. They take credit for the funding of these, as if money is the only thing that would make this happen. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are in the modern day. Some of this stuff is beyond our reach because of the lack of our ability now to even envision some of this. This is the Waldorf Astoria Hotel that was demolished in New York. You can see the detail here on above the fireplace once again. The ceilings are a big giveaway. In the modern day, it's very, very seldom that you put any detail into the ceiling of a structure, even the fanciest of homes and buildings. It's just such a large amount of work, the amount of staging you would have to set up. And then you can envision that at a time where electricity is at its infancy, having to light up your work area to get the work done, making very little sense. Difficult enough in the modern day with all of our modern technology. So much has slipped through the cracks, and we're just now getting to a point in history where we're regaining our memory of what we lost. I don't think any of this can ever be gone forever if we can bring it back into our consciousness. Let's see, this one's in France. I believe it's a train station. Yeah, the Gare de Lyon. And looking like it could easily have been considered a cathedral of some sort. But no, this was a government building and built for waiting for the train and having a meal, I suppose, as well. They just decided to put all these angels and paintings in the ceiling area. It's absolutely silly, really, when you think about it. I'm having a lot of fun over on X now that I have my Old World Exploration account going on there. I've been sharing a lot of visuals, so if you're not following me over there, definitely suggest you do. It's a good place for you to grab the pictures that I share and save them into your phone or your device, whatever you're following me on, whatever you're checking it out on. A little bit more interactive that way. This one's in Belgium. This is the old stock exchange in Antwerp. Looking like it's getting close to meeting the wrecking ball. And again, you can see the blurry lines between what we might consider to be a cathedral. In this case, a stock exchange. The last one was a train station. And this is the Balmoral Castle in the UK that was hijacked by the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family. That became the Royal House of Windsor in the UK. And I've read some horrific things about what has occurred within the walls of this castle and beneath this castle. There is an interesting story attached to it as well concerning Prince Albert Victor, who was the grandson of Queen Victoria, potentially being responsible for the Jack the Ripper murders and then a subsequent cover-up. There's a lot more to that, but that's something you can search on your own. I'll leave it alone for now. The Baltimore Library. I apologize for the background noise. The dogs are going a little bit crazy. I should also mention too, moving forward, the plan is as we get into the summer months to get some sort of interaction going on my Rumble channel in particular. So if you're not following me on Rumble, I suggest you do that as well, and I'll try to have some conversations with people that will delve outside of the old world specifically, not entirely, but I think a lot of these conspiracies, if you will, overlap nicely. So keep an eye out for that as well. I'll announce that on this channel, but they'll be specifically broadcast over on Rumble so as to not offend the YouTube censors, which I've been battling with shadow banning here on this channel for some time. The Basilica di Santa Maria di Campania, I believe in Italy. You can see the octagonal patterns that get repeated so often in the underside of the arches, and of course the pipe organs again. So this is a universal theme we're seeing as we bounce from country to country and purpose to purpose as far as the buildings are concerned. It's in Baton Rouge, the old state capital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. One of my favorite locations that is absolutely over-the-top gorgeous is the Bayreuth Opera House in Germany. Here's the ceiling. Take that in for a second. Paintings, sculptures, breathtaking. I only ever really heard of the Sistine Chapel for ceiling paintings growing up. It's like they do that with everything. They do that with the pyramids. We get one example, and then I guess our curiosity has been satisfied is what the expectation is there. But I think it's kind of silly. So not just paintings, and even down to the color on some of these. I'm not saying this one in particular, but often the color is not necessarily paint. Often they'll use stone and different shades of hardwoods to give us the colors that we see in many of these old world structures. Practically an impossibility in the modern day, even considering all the advancements that have been made from then till now. So we've gone backwards in many ways. This is in the UK, in Birmingham, the old library that was torn down and replaced with a hideous piece of modern brutalist architecture. Another library, this one's in Boston, and you can see the use of stone. There's so much depth and warmth. And another thing to keep an eye out for are these rosettes. They're often included in those octagonal patterns. In this case, not octagonal, but you still see the rosettes. I believe these are closely tied with the energetic systems that these buildings utilized in the old world. The Breakers Mansion in Newport, Rhode Island. I did a video on this one. Another look at the Breakers Mansion with its ceiling paintings. Now, the stories they give us for these are often that these very, very wealthy philanthropists, robber barons, whatever you want to call them, had a lot of these paintings imported over from Europe and installed on the ceilings, the walls, wherever it might be. I think that's all just a work of fiction. This is in Montreal, in Canada. Mary, Queen of the World Cathedral with its dome. It could have easily been a state capitol building. And this is the National Capitol building in Ottawa, in Canada. I'd love to see them try to reproduce this in the modern day. This is Castle Howard in Yorkshire, in the UK. Very similar. You can see the paintings are being left to decay with very little upkeep. And it really makes you wonder how old these structures really are. The Cresto di Pavia, I believe in Italy. I could be wrong. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong. I try to get most of them right, but sometimes a few of them will slip through the cracks and you'll find a photo from the wrong city. Apologies for that. There's another good example of the flower-type rosettes at a central point on the underside of this arched structure. And again, all of this stonework, as you can see. Over the top, gorgeous. The Chambord Castle, or Chateau de Chambord in France. Very difficult to even fathom any of this. Interesting figures that we're seeing in the ceiling area as well. These are stone. This looks all to be stone, and almost what we might consider to be dragon type creatures. Salamanders, maybe. Hard to tell. Curious as to why those would be included so heavily in these structures. Also looking like, as you can see, potentially statues or something is missing in a lot of these cavities here around the sides of the central column. An absolute work of art. Over to Prague, the St. Vitus Cathedral. And it's very possible that many of the paintings have been redone to fit a specific narrative. I suspect in a lot of these locations, some are original, some have been doctored, and some have been completely replaced. Back to Canada now, Chateau Frontenac in Quebec City, a railway hotel. This would be a chapel associated with that structure. I featured that in one of my Knuckleheads broadcasts with Frankie from New West Reset. Railway hotel, okay. The Chateau Laurier, also a railway hotel. This one's in Ottawa. Just focusing in on the paintings included in some of the architecture there. And you're getting these depictions of what we'd probably consider to be a griffin, which is so closely tied with what we know of now as Tartaria, one of the symbolic figures. And these griffins tend to pop up in a lot of strange locations. And I believe this is the St. Louis World's Fair. You have an 1803 and 1903 timeline there. I believe that has to do with the Lewis and Clark expedition, the Louisiana Purchase. But look at the underside of the arches. Are we really to believe that this is all just a cheap imitation of the old world? It looks identical. Really got to make you think how much of this is has been altered for our consumption, and how much has been there for much longer. The Christ Church Cathedral in Dublin. So many cathedrals in Europe, but also on the North American continent as well. I think perhaps I'll do a video on cathedrals in particular one of these days, just to show you how much there is here in North America. That usually gets people thinking. We get away from the assumption that it's all just in Europe. This is another Christ Church Cathedral, not sure which one. Gotta love the modern chairs with the backdrop of the spectacular cathedral. Look at the floor itself, the detail on the floor. Mind-blowing, really. This is a colorized photo of the Cincinnati Public Library, long gone at this point in time. You can see that it's been colorized as we get a little closer. And you got a beautiful spiral staircase, and you've also got stained glass windows in a library, which I find to be curious, not something we would ever consider including in the modern day. The old world really giving us an indication that this was a holistic society, where we didn't compartmentalize purpose for these structures. They were all part of a whole, and they all had little pieces of each other in the buildings, in each different building, whatever the purpose may have been. And of course, there's an energetic factor to that too. I do believe that much of this realm was what we might consider to be terraformed, using energetic ley lines as a grid pattern. And there was a massive cataclysm here that shaped and formed the continents, and much of the landscape that we now have been tricked into believing has been around for a very long time. That is a result of things like glacial flow and tectonic plates. I think a lot of that is a cover story to cover up the truth of the realm that we exist in, right down to the actual shape of the this place. Spinning ball is a part of that deception. It's part of the trap. It keeps you fooled, as far as I'm concerned. No offense if you're having trouble letting go of the spinning ball. It's a difficult one. I battled with it for a long time. There was quite a period of time where I thought it was a psyop by the intelligence agencies to discredit all other areas of research, let's say, that fall outside of the norm. This is in Spokane, Washington, the Hotel Davenport, or Davenport Hotel. Also the Davenport Hotel, with, again showing us the figurines of what look to be what we might consider griffins. A lot of detail for a hotel in Spokane, Washington. One of my favorites as well, the spiral staircase at the Des Moines State Capitol Library. I teach the math for spiral stairs. And building this one, the math is doable. The building of this one, with the railings all built in, is very difficult to fathom. Again, at that very early time period, any mistake, it would have to be these things would have to be recreated, and the amount of time that would be needed to do that is. We're looking at mistake-free architecture. which implies that potentially we're not by the hand of humans as we know them in the modern day. That's not to say we didn't build them. Maybe a previous version of what we are responsible for this. Just speculating. We don't really know for sure. These are large questions that we may never see the answers, probably likely not get the answers for. Here we have what look to be a hexagonal pattern rather than octagonal, but showing us a lot of similarities. This is the Duomo di Siena in Italy. Jumping over to the Elkins estate. Again, a wealthy businessman decided to dump their money into this structure, is what we'll be told. And these are all just cover stories as far as I'm concerned. Either that or these people had such fantastic taste and had the resources to find the greatest craftsman in the world. They must have been fighting over the greatest craftsman, because these things were going up everywhere. That's the problem. Just not enough of us to justify all of this construction. The Engineers Club in Baltimore, the underside of a spiral stairs working its way up to what looks to be a glass dome. The Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge. Again, with that circular aspect, the stone. How did they mill these marble and granite columns at those very early time periods? I've seen the rudimentary drawings of the machines they were said to have had. I just think it's completely insufficient to explain away what we're seeing. It's fiction, as far as I'm concerned. We come to another Fox Theater, this one in Atlanta, Georgia. Very unique looking, interesting structure, and including a pipe organ, of course. So I remember the repeat of these features. And this is that same Fox Theater, the interior. Wow, that would be a nice place to take in a show. Jumping back to the Fox Theater in San Francisco for a moment. All we have really is a handful of photographs and what looked to be potentially drawn in, but this is the interior of the Fox Theater in San Francisco that they felt needed to be demolished in 1963, I believe. Jumping back to the Fox Theater. Although I believe this one might be in St. Louis. Now it gets confusing, there's so many Fox Theaters. So I may be mixing up the Atlanta and the St. Louis Fox Theater. Anyone out there that can clarify, I'd love to hear that in the comments. Let me know. If you've been to any of these places, please add your anecdotal stories. It really adds a lot of texture to these videos. Frederiksborg Castle in Denmark. I did a video on this very early on my channel. Very difficult to explain. I believe this is the castle where they found some of those giant books that were several feet wide by several feet long. Large books. You may have seen that if you've been into this topic for some time. And we're just taking a little look around this Frederiksborg Castle. No doubt a gem in Denmark to visit. The detail. Still Frederiksborg. Ceiling paintings, of course, they did this everywhere. This looks like it's got used as a chapel of some sort. I don't know if this is all marble. This sculpting back here. Don't imagine this window is original. Looks too simplistic when you compare that to what's around it. Difficult to cover up stone as well, right, and alter these things. I think a lot of them still survive and exist in the state they are because they can't. Anything short of demolishing them, they just can't make the alterations in some cases that hide it. That, and they also provide a cover story. Here's a better look at the pipe organ in the Frederiksborg Castle. Absolutely gorgeous. A lot of nodes and coming off the ceiling. The cherubs. Moving on, this is in Galway in Ireland, on the west coast of Ireland. You're seeing hexagonal patterns with rosettes here. This looks like it's all out of wood on the underside of the arches. but it's very similar features once again. The Grenoble Library in France. Beautiful places to store information. I often wonder in so many of these libraries how much is accessible, how much has been hidden. I believe what they want us to be aware of has been placed out in front for us to access, and so much is behind lock and key, if you will. Havana, Cuba. Looking very familiar, like a state capital, or in some cases a cathedral, with its domed architecture. And we're back to the octagonal features here on the underside of the arches and domes. Beautiful looking structure. Absolutely over the top. Moving on to the Hearst Castle. This is in California. An early photograph of the Hearst Castle complex. Conceived by Mr. William Randolph Hearst, yet another robber baron / philanthropist. Take your pick. And we're going to take a look at a couple interior shots of the Hearst Castle. And very reminiscent of what we've seen in other locations again. Every square inch covered. Seems a bit silly that to assume this gentleman had such taste as to cover the entire complex in all of this. Take a look at the ceiling here. Incredible. Incredible work. Giving that castle / cathedral feel, this room. Looking like you've got a fireplace heavily decorated in the back there. California, no less. The Hermitage in Russia, in St. Petersburg, Russia. Man, I gotta do a video on St. Petersburg as well. Absolutely gorgeous architecture there. And some of the early photographs of St. Petersburg that people have dug up, showing very few people, if any, in the streets there, and giving that eerie feeling of a reset city. Over to Versailles now. We get the rosettes, this time in what look to be squares. But at what point do we consider that it's not just to be for decoration, but some sort of function, not just form? There's another one centrally located under the arch. The University of Cambridge in the UK, King's College Chapel, with a very complex ceiling, as we can see here, and amazing stained glass. And no doubt these walls and halls tell many, many stories. All the figurines, all the symbolism. The Jasna Gora Monastery in Poland, with the beauty of a pipe organ. They must have had masters, pipe organ masters, all over the world. In the old world, of course. La Venaria Reale in Turin, Italy. Again, very familiar looking architecture. It never gets old. It's absolutely spectacular. We're looking at a civilization that has been lost to us, and the story of our past has been fragmented, and the languages have helped to fragment that, and different religions for different locations, different stories, different monarchies, all interconnected behind the scenes, well beyond anything that we can understand. I think this is very, very deep, and exciting to be in a time where we're waking up to it. La Mancha in Toledo, Spain. All its statuary here. Los Angeles. Just the theater. And just to show you some of the finished detail on the interior of the theater itself. Many, many, many theaters across North America. Many have been demolished. Some have been preserved, like this one. And often they get a big sign in front, hiding their beauty. And I could go on for hours. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I'll just roll through quickly the rest of my slideshow. And this is in Lyon, France. Fourvière, I believe, would get you there in a search. The detail. Oof. Keep moving forward. Manaus in Brazil. Everywhere getting a similar reset with different characters, slightly different time frames. The Marble House in Newport, Rhode Island. Make sure you check that video out. The Margravel Opera House in Germany. We might have seen a photo from this earlier on. In Mexico City, this is the post office. Of course it is. Post offices were absolutely spectacular. They're reclaimed structures from the old world. I'm not really pulling my punches anymore. I've seen too much. None of this makes any sense. The narrative that we're given. This is the Michigan Theater, or 8th Theater in Michigan, sorry. Not sure where. Could be anywhere. And many of these, I think, performing arts venues of the old world. I believe the performing arts was a large part of the old world. And as the motion pictures came into being, the whole brainwashing machine got going. And in many cases sucked the life right out of these performing arts venues. This one's in Tajikistan. Neuschwanstein Castle. There's Neuschwanstein. Said to have been built for King Ludwig II of Bavaria, but he didn't live to see its completion. Absolute fiction as far as I'm concerned. Slovakia, showing all the hallmarks of everything we've seen so far. We're looking at unified architecture. Indistinguishable, these interiors, from one another in styling. The Palace Theater in Manhattan, showing us some similarities. Get some rosettes on the ceilings. Level of detail off the charts. That whole Manhattan Island and what is now modern day New York City. Obviously an old world hub. An energetic node. The Palace of Versailles with its ceiling paintings. The Paramount Theater in Brooklyn, now a basketball court. I mean, not a bad place to knock down a three-pointer as you're looking up at the ceiling. Basketball court. This is the underside of the Rotunda in Pennsylvania, I believe. Pittsburgh, sorry. I believe. Getting to the end of the file now. Not sure where this one is, but certainly worthy of inclusion. What kind of stories are being told up here? You get the depictions of the structures themselves. All sorts of angelic beings being looked up to. Again, indicating to us we have different levels of consciousness. Probably a highly revered level of consciousness existing in this plane. Not something out in the ether that many who consider to be fiction. I think there's much more to this story. The dome at Pisa, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, is not just the tower. It's the dome, underside of a dome structure with every square inch painted. And we get the octagonal shape at its center. This is inside the cathedral at Pisa as well. Take a look at what's going on up here. The rosettes, once again. Gold leaf. Arches, columns. The Clementinum Library in Prague. Of course, you get the globe front and center to distract you. So what do you think of my presentation? Eye candy? Salerno. This is in Salerno. Or do you prefer the clean lines and the modern brutalist architecture that litters our landscape in the modern day? Scottish Rite Cathedral in Indianapolis. A lot of detail. The Singer Building in New York no longer stands. This is the inside. The arched and domed ceiling of the main corridor. Rosettes once again featured prominently. So much has been demolished. It's a real treasure that we actually have these access to these photographs. Sometimes I get people saying, I hope you back up your files. You never know when your content could be erased online. I back up everything. I've got thousands and thousands of visuals saved. I've got all my videos saved as well. Not to worry as far as that goes. The St. Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh, Scotland. Interesting story with Edinburgh too. They say it's a city upon a city. Massive underground complex. There's so much beneath ground as well, which lends to the depth of the theory that we're on a terraformed grid. Much of it has been destroyed, much of it remains, much of it somewhere in between destruction and remaining. St. Patrick's Cathedral. I'm not sure if that's the New York version. It's very possible. I also thought I'd include the Titanic, a few visuals from the Titanic. Many have hypothesized that the old technologies were repurposed and eliminated eventually, reused until the time when they didn't need them anymore. Titanic being one of them. You can see some of the architecture here. And really, how recent is this reset? This is a consciousness reset that occurred. I believe WW2 is the trigger. I mention that quite often. We're just looking at some visuals now. Or was there a downward movement away from what the old world was? Is that where we get a lot of the arts, a lot of our artistic flair? And as we move away from that in time, as we move away from the old world, and maybe to keep that artistic flair, we need to get closer to it again. The University of Pittsburgh, this is the Cathedral of Learning. Yes, it's a university building in the States dedicated to higher learning. The Uptown Theater in Chicago, heavily ornamented, looking like they're having trouble with the upkeep here as the paint starts to peel away. And the final slide I have is in Zaragoza, Spain, just the underside of a dome. You can see the detail and ornamentation close up, and as we get up toward the dome, there is a big hole in it. Perhaps symbolic of the destruction of the old world, where much of it does remain, and much of it has been destroyed. But I believe it is our responsibility to remember this. Thanks for watching. This has been an old world exploration. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, and comment. I believe we are in the process of remembering who we really are and casting off the shackles of illusion. Until next time.